Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1993 thriller, The Fugitive. Now, The Fugitive, in my opinion, is one of those films that is critically acclaimed, has quite the reputation, and it's well deserved. This is a fantastic film. This is easily one of my favorite Harrison Ford films, and honestly, one of my favorite films in this genre. Like, it's one of the most terrific thrillers out there. It's consistently engaging, it's consistently thrilling, and just a really compelling film overall. And a really well made film, too. Like, this movie, from top to bottom, features some absolutely terrific performances, as well as production values and technical merits. It's directed by Andrew Davis, and if you ask me, this is his best work as a director. And he's not a bad director. I mean, prior to this, he did Under Siege. He did a good job with that. Did some good work with other films like Code of Silence and Above the Law. But this is him at his best and delivering his A game, and it's genuinely astounding. I think he did a awesome job directing this movie. This is a film that has a very frenetic pace, and he matches that with his visuals and with his direction. And he does it in a way that doesn't come across as chaotic and messy. And I think that's something that could have been really easy to do considering everything that's going on with this movie. A lot of ways it is one extended long chase with Tommy Lee Jones's character Gerard chasing after Dr. Richard Kimball. And it really leads to some genuinely relentless and risky and just rewarding filmmaking from Andrew Davis. It's especially impressive when it comes to the main set pieces. The train crash and escape is on another level. Like, that is honestly one of the best sequences that I have ever seen in any film when it comes to a sequence like that, where there's a crash and then there's an escape and a foot chase. It is just a tour de force of filmmaking in that particular scene. And it was all done for real. It wasn't a miniature. I thought it was a miniature. And then I found out it wasn't. Like, they did that for real with real trains. Um, and even just simple scenes like the flashback sequences with Kimball when he's dealing with the aftermath of his wife's death, or just the moments where he's focusing more on the emotion from Harrison Ford or Tommy Lee Jones or other people in the cast. Even those scenes stand out. Like, it's a really a well directed movie. And just the framing is fantastic. The shot selection is superb. The camera angles, like, they're not too distracting. They seem to fit the scene very well when he does decide to utilize them. The movement of the camera is very fluid, and it's not something that is too static or stop and go. Like, it doesn't stutter. And I've seen that before when it comes to films of this nature, where the direction can kind of stall a little bit. That doesn't happen with The Fugitive. Uh, just there's just so much to love about the way that this is directed. The stunt work, not just the train sequence, but I mean the aqueduct scene, like the famous scene where Harrison Ford is trying to get away from Tommy Lee Jones, and then his character Dr. Kimball leaps off the dam. Like, that or I don't know if it was a dam, but he leaps into the water. It's this massive drop. Like the way that that entire sequence was shot was excellent, and even like the confrontation between Kimball and the one-armed man in the subway, that was also really solid. And it's just a film that just has so much about it that really does work and works at a high level. And one of those things is absolutely Andrew Davis's direction. I don't think this film would be as good without it, because he does have a certain intensity, he does have a certain energy that he brings to it that makes it stand out from some of the other thrillers from this time period. And even now, like it's got a certain extra added level of energy to it. It really does. That matches the overall vibe of the movie. And it's just such a great meshing of what the film is trying to do story wise and character wise and set piece wise with the direction. It's easily one of the best outputs from a director in this genre. It genuinely is. Now, the script by Jeb Stewart and David Toohey, I also feel is great. Now, Jeb Stewart did some rewrites and he's credited, but a lot of the writing, especially a lot of the dialogue, especially a lot of moments between Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford, that was all improvised by the actors. So that's something to keep in mind when it comes to looking at this script. But what I love about this screenplay is that it's a good adaptation of some key plot points and elements of the TV show that it's based on, but it doesn't overly rely on the source material to enable itself to stand on its own or stand period. Like it doesn't do that, which I've seen that a lot with these adaptations. There's a reason why this movie is considered to be, for a lot of people, even better than the TV show. A lot of people don't even know there was a TV show. They just think that this was an original script and this was just the only Fugitive movie. And there was no TV show before this. And the reason for that is because of how well executed and how well written this adaptation is. It's so well done, it's so well crafted that it's not only just a proper tribute to what came before it, but it winds up being better and improving upon it in a multitude of different ways. And it really understands the importance of characters and the strength of them. And it also emphasizes the importance of having not only a charismatic lead in Dr. Kimball, but a character who is genuinely a good guy. And there are moments in the script where it will go out of its way to show Kimball's good nature. And that seems like a small thing, but to me, it's a huge thing. And it's a huge advantage for this film, in this script in particular. Because right off the bat, it really makes you sympathize with Kimball because you automatically do not agree with the court's decision that he's guilty. You see it in a completely different light due to things like the script setting things up where Kimball's being interrogated and you see his reaction and the emotions that he's dealing with in that scene. And it really seems like it's the emotion and the reaction that you would get from somebody who is innocent and did not kill their wife. And not only that, you also have like the ambiguity of the phone call with Kimball and his wife, or, you know, actually his wife just calling 911 and then asking for her husband. And you could maybe see how the prosecution could twist it into making it seem like she's blaming him for her death. But you can also look at it as she's just asking for her husband in her dying breath because she loves him so much and trusts him that much. And the whole addition of the one-armed man, I love because it adds an extra bit of mystery and really adds the whole investigation thing and overall element into the script where Kimball is using his smarts to sneak into different places and get into the computers and look up who has got a prosthetic and what kind of prosthetic that they have and then narrow things down so we can find out exactly who the culprit is, who the guy is that in reality killed his wife. And it just leads to a very satisfying result as well. You know, he figures all this out, finds the one-armed man. You have that great scene in the subway where the one-armed man is initially, you know, throwing Kimball around like a rag doll, and he was like, "You missed your stop." Yeah, and then I love how the script turns that line around when Kimball kicks his ass, and then is always, "You missed your stop." You know, I love that. I thought it was great, and for every script that has a good hero, which it which this does. I mean, Kimball is a really well written character. He's a guy who you instantly sympathize with and you root for, and he does all these good things. He doesn't hurt any people. He's not hurting any innocent people when it comes to him and his a quest for revenge and his journey on you know, proving his innocence. He goes out of his way to find non-violent situations and or ways to solve a particular problem. He uses his smarts, he uses his wits and his skills that he's obtained over the years to, you know, blend in or to figure out what to do next. You have the moments like when there's that kid who has the chest injury and he takes a look at the x-ray and signs the papers and gets the kid sent to the right place in the hospital and winds up saving the kid's life. And I like how he's still willing to, you know, incorporate the different people that were a part of his life previously at the hospital, and he's ballsy enough to go out there and get their help to try to, you know, figure out what's going on and figure out the connection possibly between this pharmaceutical company and then maybe the connection between this company and the murders and the one-armed man and somebody that he considered his friend in Charles and Charles Nichols. And like I love the scene where you have the confrontation between uh Richard and Charles when Charles is doing his whole speech at the hotel and and Kibble just walks right in and tells him like it is and tells the truth and gets the spotlight put right on him, and that's just a prime example of just how Kimball was just so sure in himself and his innocence that he was willing to put himself right up front and center in that moment, despite everything that was going against him, because of his convictions and what he believes in and what he stands for. And that also carries over into the finale when he has every opportunity to maybe kill Charles, but he doesn't do it. Said he just incapacitates him even when Charles is threatening, him with a gun or is threatening to shoot Gerard. And speaking of Gerard, for every strong protagonist like Dr. Kimball, you need a strong antagonist. And I think Gerard is an effective antagonist, but also an effective uh, pseudo protagonist as well. It's one of those rare instances where you have a character that works as an antagonist, as the guy who is in the way of our hero and wants to nab him, wants to catch him, wants to stop him, wants to put him back in jail, but also a man of reason in his own capacity and in his own fashion. And by the end of the film, you come to respect Gerard more than you might have initially at the start of the movie. I love how the script does another instance of turning things around where you have that great scene in the aqueduct where Harrison, his character Richard, is talking to Gerard and he's all like, I didn't kill my wife. And Gerard's like, I don't care. Yeah, I love that bit. It's iconic for a reason. But then the script does this clever thing with it at the end of the movie where when Kimball has proved himself to Gerard, proved his innocence, and even saved his life, you have this moment where Kimball is being treated by Gerard for, and when it comes to Kimball's wounds, like his knuckles are all bruised and beaten up, and Gerard is putting like ice on him, and Gerard's, he's trying to like get around the whole sort of thing because he's in a lot of ways he has this very hard exterior, but he's a guy who has a heart of gold in a similar fashion to Kimball. And so they have this moment where they connect with one another where Kimball turns the word I don't care around on Gerard. It's like I thought you didn't care. And then Gerard is all like don't tell anybody. Like I love that. I love that about this script. And yeah, I really do feel that the writing for Gerard was great in terms of the dialogue that he was given. It really did a good job showcasing just how driven he is to catch his man and also how much he cares about his fellow um, uh, team, the guys who are part of his crew at the US Marshals, and how much he cares about getting things done the right way and also somewhat by the book. He'll take some chances here and there, but he's not willing to go too rogue or go too over the line. And so I definitely did like that as well when it comes to his character, and I love how as the story progresses he starts to look at the pieces of the puzzle and sees how things aren't fitting properly as well. And he starts to see how Kimball could be innocent. And I love how he comes to his own conclusions and doesn't let other people, dictate the truth or their vision of the truth to him. And I also like the fact that it doesn't fall into some typical tired sort of cliches when it comes to a story like this. There's no added love interest. They don't go that route. Apparently, there was something in the original script, and they shot some scenes with Julianne Moore's character, the doctor at one of the hospitals, where she and Kimball were starting to have a bit of a thing. I'm glad they cut that out. That was not needed, and that's something that helped this film stand out from other movies like this because it doesn't have some unneeded, unnecessary love interest bogging things down. You don't need to focus on that. You don't need that at all. What you need is to focus on these two men who are driven, who are focused on uh, similar goals. Gerard wants to catch his man, and Kimball wants to stay one step ahead of Gerard and escape his clutches and prove his innocence and stop running. That's really what Kimball's running because he has to, but he doesn't want to keep running. That's why when it's cut and dry that the real culprit has been caught, he's handcuffed the one-armed man to the subway, he's incapacitated Dr. Nichols, he gives up. He's like, I'm done running. I don't want to run anymore. So there's just so much about this script that is just so strong and just so great, and the various different ways that Kimball escapes from Gerard is definitely one of them. The way that Kimball escapes, period, is one of them. I mean, that whole setup with the train crash is just terrific stuff, and the aqueduct scene and jumping off the waterfall and then into the water below. Is it realistic? No, but it's a movie, so I don't really give a shit. Um, and I just love how things escalate throughout the story. Things get more and more interesting. There's more and more clues that are figured out. The mystery becomes more and more revealed and solved throughout the script in its entirety until you get to the final revelation at the end. And it's not something that just happens like halfway through the movie or anything. It takes its time and builds up to it. And I like how throughout all the different moments between Gerard and Kimball, Gerard gets closer and closer. I think it really helps build the tension when it comes to the film as a whole, when it applies to Kimball and his attempts to stay on the run. And it also shows Gerard in a good light. It shows him that he's good at his job because he keeps getting cracks at Kimball, and he keeps getting closer every time. Then you get to that one moment where Kimball almost got caught, and he just barely got out of there. When he went to I think it was like he went to that prison to go meet one of the guys on the list who has a mechanical arm. Um, Maybe mechanical arm isn't the right word, but he has like it's like a prosthetic, and he meets up with the guy, and it's not who he thinks he is. So he gets out, he escapes, but he barely escapes because Gerard was on him. And I love that. I love that about this script. That's really how you do this. Like this script puts on a clinic when it comes to effectively creating tension for a thriller of this nature. I really don't have any complaints about this script. I genuinely don't. Like everything about this script is there for a reason, and it all adds up in the end to a very satisfying conclusion. Now, as good as this direction and this script is, I mean, you got to have the right cast. And this is a amazing cast. This is a absolutely top of the line A plus cast. Harrison Ford is Dr. Kimball. This is one of those roles that Harrison Ford was born to play. Harrison does so well playing these kind of characters, these everyman guys, these innocent types, the guy who's been railroaded, or the guy who's been framed, or the guy who's on the run, because he just does such a good job playing these types of characters, because he believably is able to portray a guy who you could buy, you know, being, your neighbor or your teacher, or, someone of that ilk. He doesn't necessarily feel like he's larger than life, despite the fact that he's played these larger than life characters like Han Solo and Indiana Jones. He still has that ability to play a normal guy and do it well, but also when he needs to turn it up, when he needs to show the charisma, when he needs to show the charm, when he needs to show nuances and different layers and different sort of aspects of his performance that really do elevate a particular sort of everyman role, he's also able to do that. And this role is no exception. Like, this features some of his best work, if you ask me. He just plays such a likable character. And right off the bat, it just makes for so much more of a compelling movie because you just immediately connect with Kimball and you care about him and you want him to get out of this and you want him to prove his innocence. And I don't necessarily feel if you had a different actor, you would really get the same thing because Harrison is just so good at playing these type of characters. I know Christopher Reeve was at one point considered, along with Alec Baldwin, Nick Nolte, Kevin Costner, and Michael Douglas. And Christopher Reeve is somebody who might have been able to kind of portray the same sort of innocence, the same sort of persona. Uh, but I don't know if he would be as believable when it comes to some of the more action orientated things, from the fisticuff sort of stuff. And I really appreciate, I really like Reeve as an actor, but I just don't know if he was necessarily the right guy for something like this. And Nick Nolte was too old, and he even admitted that. That's why he ultimately didn't do it. And I just don't see Alec Baldwin and Kevin Costner or Michael Douglas in this. Um, and apparently Ford pursued the role of Kimball because he liked to play characters who aren't like him, which is funny because I think there's a lot of Harrison in Kimball, but you know, maybe he wanted to play a guy who, you know, was a little bit more, let's just say, down to earth than Harrison is. Like, I think Harrison has those traits, but not as much as he's shown here, like playing in a lot of ways like a total humanitarian type, like a guy who's a surgeon whose job it is to save lives. Part of it is also he wanted to grow a beard, which honestly was a good look and a good choice. And before I go on and talk about a different actor or more actors in this cast, I also got to give Harrison major kudos for powering through because he injured his leg pretty early on in filming when they were doing the whole train crash sequence. And so for a large amount of the production, he was dealing with a limp and a I wouldn't say significant leg injury, but a leg injury that was definitely bothering him throughout the production. And he was able to power through that and still deliver one of his most powerful and one of his most dynamic performances. Now, of course, Harrison was great, but Tommy Lee Jones was equally as great as Gerard. This is honestly one of my favorite performances from Tommy Lee. Uh, Kimball's one of my favorite Harrison Ford performances, and I feel the way about Gerard for Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones plays these type of shark characters really well. And I know some people might think, shark, what? Because sharks are relentless. When you throw the chum in the water, they they will not stop for anything. And I feel that Tommy Lee Jones really does represent that type of tenacity very well, and he really showcases it here. Like, there is a certain desperation when it comes to this character, but also certain confidence that he's able to showcase throughout the film. And it's just a really good performance. I think he did deserve his Oscar. I felt it was well deserved. It was a just a really strong performance in every possible facet. Yeah, he had the charm and the charisma when it comes to maybe dropping a one liner or two. but he also was able to have these moments where he's beaten down and he's showing visible distraught on the face of Gerard when he's just not able to get this guy. You know, he has that meeting with everybody when they're in Chicago, and he's just like, it's we just can't get him yet. And it's you could just see like the exasperation build throughout the film on Tommy Lee's face, and when it comes to the energy that he was bringing to the scene. Um, and yeah, just a really a terrific performance. Uh, the rest of the cast is fine too. Like Sela Ward for her little brief role as Helen, she nailed it. Did a good job in a short amount of time, making you buy that she is genuinely madly in love with Kimball, and she loves him more than anything. And so when she gets killed, it really is something that hurts to see, because she does genuinely pull off playing this character who seems like a really sweet person, who was just the epitome of somebody who was completely innocent. And she did a good job in a little bit that she had with Harrison too, actually having chemistry with him, some good romantic chemistry, which made her death all the more tragic. And the cast who plays the rest of the U.S. Marshals, I really love them, especially Joe Pantoliano. Like Joe Pantoliano is just a great actor, and he just makes a lot of films better by his presence. And this film was no exception. Just brings that same snark and that same attitude and charisma that he brings to almost anything as Cosmo. Uh, Daniel Roebuck I also liked as Bobby Briggs. He did a good job playing his role, providing a little bit of extra charm of his own to that character to make it stand out from the other guys in the group. Tom Wood is Noah. L. Scott Caldwell is Aaron. Johnny Lee Davenport as Marshall. Henry. Um, all of them did some really fine work. Of course, Andreas Katsulas as Sykes. He played a pretty intimidating presence as the one-armed man, despite him being an older guy. Like, he did a good job playing this hitman character. Jeroen Crab, like, the guy is just really solid in almost anything, and this is no exception. Does a good job playing these slimy type of characters. But I have to admit, he kind of fooled me initially. I was like, maybe he's a good guy. It seems like he's friends with Kimball. And then when it's revealed that he's not a good guy, I was like, yeah, that tracks. Jordan Crabbe seems to play a lot of those characters. But it's still a great performance by him. He still does a really good job playing that character. And you also have Julianne Moore in a small role as Dr. Eastman. You've got Jane Lynch in a very early role as Dr. Kathy Walland, who works at the hospital and helps Kimball with the liver samples. You've got Richard Ryle. I think it's Ryle or Riley. He plays the guard who comes up with this BS story, tries to make himself look like the hero when it comes to the train crash and the fugitives that escaped and everything that happened during that whole debacle. He's been in a lot of stuff. Free Willy, this movie. I think he was also in the critically acclaimed comedy Office Space. I think he was also in that as well. So it's fun to see him. He's a good character actor. So yeah, just a really good cast. And cannot sing enough praises about the cinematography by Michael Chapman. I thought he did a magnificent job with this. Just a really nice looking film. There's a lot of shots in this that are really quite eye-catching, surprisingly enough, for this kind of movie. And the editing by a whole smorgasbord, a whole squad of editors is excellent. Don Brochu, David Finfer, Dean Goodhill, Dove Honig, Richard Nord, Dennis Verkler, all of them did some exemplary work with this movie, especially when it comes to the various different chase scenes and the little bits of action that are there. And the score by James Newton Howard. I think he did a really uh great job in his own right with this score. I know he wasn't initially happy with it because they were using temp music from Jerry Goldsmith when they were working on the score for the movie, and he felt like his score paled in comparison what Goldsmith was bringing to the table, but he did a great job. He really did an excellent job creating a score that was pretty unique sounding, but also a score that didn't sound too out there to the point where it didn't feel like it fit with the movie. And I do feel that he elevated a lot of scenes in this movie because of his score, because of what he was able to do with the compositions and everything in order to really make things more intense or make a certain scene have more tension or suspense and make some moments, some big grand moments, all the more thrilling. And this is a one of those films too. It's like 130 minutes, but it doesn't feel like it at all. Like this goes by like a blur, and that's definitely a positive for a film like this. You don't want a movie like this to drag, and I don't feel The Fugitive has any pacing issues whatsoever. But anyway, I really don't know what else to say about The Fugitive, except thanks for watching my review. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.